Assalamu alaikum, namaste, sat sri akal, shalom and good day. You are listening to Awaz Community Radio. And today we'll be talking to the people behind Spirit of Manchester. Now, if you want to get in touch with us, you can give us a call. It's 0161 839 9817. You can tweet us at Awaz Radio 122. We're on Facebook. Just type in Awaz Community Radio. Email us. It's awazcommunityradio@gmail.com. You're listening to Awaz Community Radio with your host Syra, and my guests for today are Mike and Adele. And Adele is somebody you will have heard recently as well. So welcome to the studios for the first time, Mike.
Hi.
And welcome, Adele.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
I'm glad you're happy to be back. So you're a professional now.
Not quite.
Okay, so guys, would you like to talk a bit about who you are and why you're here? So Mike, if you want to go first.
Okay, I'm Mike Wild and I'm the Chief Exec of MAC, and we're the organisation that basically came up with and runs the Spirit of Manchester programme around the city every year. So our job is I always say my job's to make more good things happen. We work with thousands of voluntary and community organisations and social enterprises all across the city, and Spirit of Manchester is really about celebrating all that and making more people aware of it.
Brilliant. And Adele, do you want to tell the listeners what your role is?
Yep, so I've been at MAC for just under 3 months now. So I came in to organise the Spirit of Manchester Festival, one of the parts of the programme. So I'm just rounding off, finishing that and writing a report at the moment. And then I'll be staying at MAC for a little longer on another project.
Yeah. It's too good to let go.
Now, would you like to talk about the Spirit Stories that were a new feature of the Spirit of Manchester this year?
Yeah, I love this because every year we do Spirit of Manchester, we add something new. So this year, the new thing was Spirit Stories, and it was another intern that we had with us, Alice, who worked on this. And one of the things that we wanted to look at was what's the difference that we make on a single day. So we came up with this idea of a little interview that we'd do, and we'd agree with groups in advance. Tell us what you do on one day. How many people do you see? What did you do? What were the things that came up? What did you talk about? And then everybody in MAC would ring people up. So we had I think it was about 32?
Just over 30, yeah.
Just over 30 in the end. And we all rang them. So I remember ringing Greater Manchester Immigration Aid Unit at lunchtime one day and saying, right, so how's your morning been? What have you been doing? And they were telling me about, we'd seen, I think, like 15 people that morning on their drop-in, and they had another 12 phone calls booked in later, and just the difference that made to people, because obviously that's people who are stuck in the middle of the application process or are struggling with something because they've only newly arrived, and just hearing those stories was incredible. So then you add up all 30 stories that we came up with, and just from one day, the difference from 30 organisations to this city was amazing. So we've put them all on our website, Manchester Community Central, and we're going to try and do this a bit more often. We're thinking about what we can learn from it, and maybe try and do a few more of them next year.
And I remember seeing them on social media as well.
Yeah,
I saw them on Twitter, I saw them on Facebook.
Yeah, we made a big fuss of tweeting them all out. We are going to think again about the hashtag we use, Spirit Story, because it got some slightly different stories in there than the ones we were expecting. We got lots of stuff about crystals.
That's always the danger with hashtags. You just don't know sometimes which direction they'll go.
Exactly. So we might add Manchester in there somewhere next year just to tie it down a bit. But there were so many great stories, and people joined in. So we got photographs from, we were talking to the Fair Share project up at Emerge in East Manchester about their work sort of distributing surplus food, getting it to people who need it, and they were tweeting photos of unloading cabbages from the vans, and this is what we do, look, this is us working. And it just showed you like how many people there are out there working on this stuff around us all the time. So some brilliant stuff came out.
And you've been promoting the Spirit Stories as well, haven't you, Adele?
Yeah, I had to read through each one to summarise it and pop on Facebook, and I tweeted and retweeted quite a lot of them as well. I did only 3 interviews myself, but I spoke to Care from Claire, the lady in charge of that. So it's a support group for female survivors of sexual abuse. So that was obviously quite emotional in hearing her story, and she was really open with me about her personal involvement. So yeah, really incredible stories came through.
So what kind of impact do you think the Spirit Stories had?
I don't know yet, because we're still sort of seeing the feedback on it. I suppose the thing that we're looking at, which is what Adele's working on this week mainly, is reviewing everything. And so all the feedback that we got on social media and everything. I think the fact that it's gathered so much attention and means now we have a bank of stories that we can point to people will help. We'll talk about this a bit more later, but I already know that it's opened the eyes of some of our colleagues in local public bodies. I think it's starting to make business people realise a bit, there's some stuff going on that I never knew about, and it's local. How can we get involved? So that's the sort of thing. It won't change anybody overnight, but it'll help that job of persuading more people to get involved and making more good things happen.
Brilliant. And now, would you like to talk a bit more about the festival itself?
Yes, so that leads on quite nicely. Because the last question of the Spirit Story interviews was, are you participating in the festival? So it definitely helped to increase the engagement with that. So the festival is the annual citywide celebration of Manchester's voluntary community and social enterprise sector. We had just over 70 events take place between the 1st to the 10th of October. So this was from open days, community fairs, art exhibitions, film screenings, gardening, storytelling. A whole range of organisations got involved. So it was a really great period, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And were you out there as well, Mike?
Yeah, I went to a couple of the events, not as many as I'd like, because I had to go to a lot of meetings, which is a big part of my job, unfortunately. But yeah, I was really pleased with it because Adele once again managed to make it grow. So we had more events this year than we've ever had before. They were all up and down the city, from like cycling was one of the ones I went to. I'm trying to think I didn't manage to get to the vegan event that Hume Garden Centre were doing, which I was really gutted about, because we were doing our event in the Mac office, and I was going to cook something using stuff I'd bought at the Hume Garden Centre as part of their vegan festival, but no, maybe next year.
It was a good day. I managed to get to that one. I really enjoyed it.
The photos she got from that were brilliant. It was like I was on Facebook later that evening and saw them. It was fantastic. But the thing that's so great about it is that's now the 3rd year we've done the festival. And the whole idea came from being at an open evening at Hideaway, which is a youth project in Moss Side. And just seeing other people take that idea and then run with it every year is just so uplifting. And I know people turn up to those events all up and down the city and learn something that they've never learned before about what's going on in their community. So well done, Adele.
Well, thank you.
I'll say that on the air. Well done, Adele.
So Adele, you've been out and about as well with the festival.
Yes, I tried to go to as many events as possible, but obviously it wasn't all of them. So the first event I went to was at the Inspire Centre, and it was their celebration for National Older People's Day. And this was such a good community. They were so welcoming to me, inviting me in, and I went round, spoke to lots of people there, and took pictures with our selfie frame that we got made. And the entertainment was on there, the Deputy Lord Mayor, some organisations who I was speaking to, just a real good community centre. I never really had a community centre growing up, so it was so nice to see how they all kind of shared and bonded in the space. Another probably highlight of the weeks, I went to Nexus Art Cafe for the Owl and Coconut under Paul UK's preview of their Mindful Art exhibition. So that's just in the Nook in there, but they teamed up with another organisation on the evening, which was the Homeless Arts Festival, and that was the 2nd annual festival, and just a celebration of all the skills and talent in the homeless community. So this evening went on for a good couple of hours with videos and poetry and spoken word and music, and again just a brilliant group of people. And it carried on like that throughout the week, and it was really good to see all the different communities, the whole range of activities, and just how significant the sector is to so many people's lives, and learn more about that. That was a really quite moving week for me.
Fantastic. And shall we move on to the awards now?
Yeah.
Talk about the awards. And our listeners will be aware that we were nominated for an award under the category of equalities, and we were so delighted, really were, to have been shortlisted. And we, the radio team had a fantastic night. So thank you so much for organising that. It was a great night, and so hard to pick winners.
Yeah. I'm quite glad about that, though.
I mean,
in a way, it's it should be.
Even if we do say so ourselves.
Yeah.
We found it really hard. Well, just a reminder to our listeners, with the Spirit of Manchester Awards, it's the people who go on the night get to vote. It's interactive voting.
Yeah.
So who came up with that?
We did. It was Hannah, who's a member of the MAC team. We were sort of casting around for different ideas. This is 2013 we did the first one, and I was a bit sceptical, if I'm really honest, because I thought awards, there's more important things going on in the world than just patting people on the back. So we were trying to think of what we could do differently. So the idea was we want to tell lots of stories, we want people to be actively involved in it, and we want to keep MAC as the host of the party, but not that it's us and you must come and listen to us and we're going to do everything. So we decided very quickly that we'd run a nominations process, and our only role as MAC would be to set the categories. Everything else, the shortlisting, the voting, all the decisions would need to be made by everybody involved. So make it participatory, because that's one of the things we try and do. So from that came the idea of, well, what if we made a little film about each one and then actually showed those over an evening and got people to vote on them. So it kind of all evolved from thinking about what our values are and what categories needed, and then how we'd get people involved in those. So that's why I really like it now. So it's not just giving out some prizes to people, it's actually involving everybody in it. And then, like everything else about Spirit of Manchester, it's grown over the years. The first one, we really only had enough for the people who'd been shortlisted and a few guests. And then this year, I think we've got about 260 people there, something like that. And then MAC staff on top of that, so it gets bigger every year. And we had 30 films, all shortlisted, which were made by some of the groups themselves, and we offered training and support and things like that. And then, lots and lots of voting on the night, and I want it to be as difficult as possible, because all the things that you see are brilliant. And I know, from talking to people afterwards, that they were all saying the same thing. I was like, how do you choose? So that's one of the reasons why we don't give you very long, because basically there are no losers in a situation like that. It's the key thing is to tell all those stories and pick the one that really sings to people.
Well, there were members of our team who had never been to the Spirit of Manchester Awards before. I did attend a couple of years ago as a guest, and it really sets itself apart for the fact that it is interactive voting. It's the videos that you watch, and you base your vote on that. And there's a real community feel. It really, it's throughout the entire evening. You feel a part of the ceremony. It's not an award ceremony where you just go, clap every 5 seconds and then leave. Yeah. It's a real community feeling.
I've been to awards dues where you come away having spent a lot of time clapping, but knowing next to nothing about the people who've been shortlisted, let alone the winners. You might get a little bit of information. And I think that's because, like I say, one of the things I don't just want to clap people. That in itself is not enough. This is a campaign for us. And one of the things I like about it now is it's a good way for us to show people. So we had some quite senior public sector figures there last week, some senior people from businesses. It's a way for us to say, this is what goes on. If you want to be involved in this or you want to see more of it, you need to work with us. So it's a really good introduction. And I know 2 years ago we had the chair of one of the NHS clinical commissioning groups for the city came along and presented the Wellbeing Award. And I remember him coming up on the stage and he said, I've always wanted to do the opening the envelope bit. And he still talks about it. He still says now, I remember that night because it opened my eyes to how much was going on out there. And that's the kind of response that creating that space for 300 people, whatever it is, to come along, really it leaves a lasting impression. So
I feel like these were the exact words that a lot of people were saying on the night.
Oh,
and
good.
you gave many organisations an opportunity to meet each other, sometimes for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, and really speak to each other, connect with each other, get us working together.
We've got craftier at that, I think, over the last few years. So we do. It's a bit like a wedding. You do a big table plan, and what we've got used to is the idea that we need to try and place people next to each other who don't necessarily know each other, but we think they should meet. So there's a bit of matchmaking going on. But it's also because that then sparks off new things. I love the thought that because people have met at those, they go off and do stuff together, and new things happen. And we'll never know necessarily what those were or whether they've worked, but it just increases the potential for good stuff to happen.
And how do you feel, Adele? These were your first awards?
They were, yes.
And how did you find it?
Really good evening. Really enjoyed it. You could really just see the impact. At one of the festival events, I met a young man. It was Streetwise Opera, and he made the film for Back on Track. And so he showed me his picture of his suit, and he was ever so excited. And he already said it was one of the best experiences, even if they didn't win. And then they won Volunteer Involving Organisation of the Year, and he said it's his best night of his life. And to see him come into our office with that kind of enthusiasm, it's really quite special. Yeah,
it's wonderful. That's again, I love that bit, you know, hosting it and just sort of getting to meet all these amazing people that I don't know all of them, you know. I know some of them. I was quite, you know, it's nice to welcome people I know up on the stage and be able to say publicly, these guys are brilliant. But then you get to meet all these other people who've come through the process, which is as it should be, because, you know, we can't possibly know everybody. But yeah, I love that you can see how proud people are of the work they've done, and to get to be recognised for it is hopefully going to help them, you know, keep going and do more and dream a bit bigger, you know. And
you also had Lord Mayor in attendance as well.
And that man was a legend. I was absolutely wonderful.
He is brilliant.
Oh, it was, and again, and it was so nice to be able to stand up and say to him, thank you, because he is doing such a good job. I mean, you know, leading the Pride March out in these bright pink, specially made robes and everything as the city's first openly gay Lord Mayor. And normally, you know, an awards do, you expect the guest of honour to sort of sit there and be a bit sedate and just sort of, look very important. He was up and down and all over the place, photos with everybody. He grabbed the selfie frame that we had and was running round the place. He was a star. And then right at the end of the night, I mean, he must have been tired because he'd been out doing events all day. I'll never ever forget this. He came up to me. I was still on stage and we were doing an auction. And he'd scribbled a note on one of the programmes and said, I'll personally invite 10 people to come and have tea with me in the Lord Mayor's parlour and give them a tour of the town hall, auction it. And I'm sitting there reading this thing and thinking, wow.
And that was spur of the moment?
That was completely spur of the moment. I am framing that note that he gave me. So we finished the two items that we had for auction. I put this up. And people started competing against each other for it, and we got 400 quid.
That's
just
amazing.
Because he came up with that idea on the spot, walked up to me, and it was just brilliant. So that money's going to go into local groups now. So just because he was there and decided, I can do that.
It makes such a difference, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
You know, to have a mayor like that, just so enthusiastic and really just getting into the spirit.
Yeah, exactly. He literally got into the spirit of Manchester.
Fantastic. Yeah. So do you have any other words about the awards? I mean, how are you feeling now with the awards being over and the festival being over? How does it feel?
A little emotional, I guess, particularly for me because I'm not sure whether I'd be involved with it again. Obviously, I hope Mac continues to run the festival and the awards. Assuming they will, if funding continues.
And so much work goes on behind the scenes. You worked on this for so long and so many months. You didn't have a summer, did you? You didn't have a summer.
No.
This was my summer.
Yeah.
Holiday at Mac.
Yeah. But the nice thing about it is, I know, we see this with visitors coming into the Mac office. They can see the buzz in the office in the weeks leading up to it, and then the week of the festival. We've got somebody who's working on a national project who's sort of using a desk in our office a little bit, and it was her first couple of weeks, and she was saying, wow, the energy around here this week is amazing. You know, just seeing people so happy and pumped up for, you know, making all this good stuff happen. And one of the things I love is the fact that people like Adele come in, join in with it, take an idea and run with it, and that makes more things happen every year. So that's why we keep adding all these bits, because every time somebody new comes in, we learn something new that they bring to it. So it's great. I love this bit. I'm quite glad now that we can you know, get back to some other things for a bit, but we're already starting to think about next year.
Going through the feedback and that from the festival, from the awards, some really nice emails coming through, and there and comments on Facebook, on Twitter. I've done a survey for the festival for the organisations, and people are saying useful feedback, constructive, obviously some criticisms, but mostly it's just so positive.
Yeah. And a little highlight of the evening, and I know you talked to Anika last time. She came up to the stage and just whispered to one of us that we were trending nationally on Twitter, and I never thought we'd get that.
What an achievement.
It was like, and I know it's kind of a techie thing and everything, but just to have something that started purely in Manchester get that level of attention nationally.
It was competing with The Apprentice, I think, so we did really well there.
Yeah, so I was really proud of that.
I think we all had The Apprentice on a record.
Right.
So, Mike, how much was raised on the night?
Well, thanks to the Lord Mayor's intervention and everything, we raised just over £1,600.
Wow, fantastic. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's great.
What a fantastic amount. So would you like to talk a bit more about the fund?
Yeah, so that £1,600 goes with other bits of money that we've raised during the year, and that goes into the Spirit of Manchester Fund. So this is the thing we added into it last year. We'll now give that out as small, tiny grants of around about £250 to local community groups to help them to work together. So one of our priorities that we put together with all the groups around the city is the idea of increasing the amount of collaboration and partnerships between local organisations. Mutual support, that sort of thing. So we'll use the Spirit of Manchester Fund to give out these little grants that will help people do things like, you know, joint planning sessions, you know, have a room where and hire a space where people can get together and do stuff and have that time away from the front line because it will help them do more. Or to run activities together and pay for a bit of the shared costs of doing that, just to increase the amount of stuff that's happening, but by making groups work together because they can achieve more by combining rather than on their own. So sometime in the new year, we'll put a call out to groups to send us in a little proposal, and there'll be a form to fill in because there always is. Sorry, it's money. But this is part of the thing that we see ourselves doing more of, is raising funds and helping groups do more things with the money that we've raised.
How important do you think it is for community groups to be able to access funds like this, given that in the face of austerity and cuts?
It's really difficult because there's 3,000 groups in Manchester, and about 2,000 of those run on less than £10,000 a year. You know, so they do a heck of a lot of stuff with a tiny amount of money. And I always think of it, it's like if you own a car, you're going to talk about petrol at some point. Groups need money to be able to do things. They don't need a lot, and they will make that money spin out far, far further than you would believe if you've never worked in a community organisation. But sometimes it just takes, we want to do an activity. Can somebody pay for tea and coffee? I haven't got any money, I can't do it. Right, we'll take care of that. It will be the glue that makes it all stick together. Just somebody stepping in to pay for something like that, or to cover the costs of getting people to and from the place where you're meeting or whatever. Just that little bit of oiling the wheels can make a huge difference. So that's why we keep the grants quite small. It's focused on making things a bit easier to happen. It's not going to fund huge programs. But yeah, it is really important, because you can't do stuff without having some money occasionally. The voluntary sector doesn't like talking about money. I know we all talk about it all the time, but really we want to talk about the work that we do. But in order to get that work done, sometimes you just have to ask people for money. So that's why we end up making a lot of noise about fundraising as a sector. But really, we want to tell you about the work that we do.
And I guess this is where business participation comes in.
Yeah, and it's not just about asking the businesses for money either. We're trying to encourage businesses and voluntary groups to work together to think about how they can do more. So one of the awards that we give out is for business citizenship, which is about businesses doing things like creating accessible jobs or paying living wage, or working with community organisations to think about how they could do things differently. And I want to see more of that, because I think that's the way forward. What I don't like is this idea that we just go to businesses with a tin and say, please give us your money because we're really lovely people. We're better than that. We can be more creative than that. And I don't want businesses to kind of outsource their compassion to us, because people who work in businesses want to do good things as well. So let's find out what we can work together on, rather than just give us money and we'll go off and do it.
And I guess you've already touched on this a little bit already about the state of the sector, the voluntary sector. How do you feel? So,
well, we're about to find out. This is the big thing. So 3 years ago, we did a piece of research called State of the Sector. We did a huge survey. We actually did it across Greater Manchester in partnership with others. And for the first time, I was able to say there are 3,093 groups. It's a very specific number. And there are 94,000 volunteers in the city of Manchester. And they work with 12,500 staff. And they bring in £477 million a year of funding to the city. And collectively, we create 730 odd million pounds worth of value for the city's economy, which is twice as much as football does. And I was really proud of that, because I don't like football. But more importantly, it meant I could go to other people and say, this is the impact that we have. I have some hard numbers. Now, like you said, there's been austerity in the last few years. Cuts have got worse. Things have got harder. Our sector's seen, more demand, less resources. So we want to see what the difference is. So we're running the survey again at the moment. So this is a plea to any voluntary organisations or charities or social enterprises or anybody who's working even vaguely in the third sector or whatever you want to call it. Please fill in the survey, because that's the way that we show what impact we make on the city, but also how things are changing, how we need to plan for the future, and how strong our sector is in the face of all this that's going on.
That's great, Mike. So would you like to tell our listeners as to how they can fill that survey in?
So if you go to www.manchestercommunitycentral.org, there's a link to the survey on the very front page of our website. We are tweeting it and sending it out through all our social media as well, so hopefully you won't be able to avoid it. But you can get to it from the front page of the Manchester Community Central website.
Brilliant. And your contact details for our listeners?
Go to the Manchester Community Central website. Everything is on there. The MAC office number is 0161 834 9823. That's burned into my memory. We were talking about my history of MAC earlier. And you can reach us on Twitter at MCRCOMM Central, Manchester Community Central. I'm on Twitter as Mike Wild Mac. Predictably, it took me ages to come up with that one. And yeah.
Facebook
Facebook.
as well, Spirit of Manchester.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not quite as busy as Twitter, but we're trying. We're growing Facebook.
And we've got the volunteer centre that we run is also on Facebook as well, Volunteer Centre Manchester.
I think Facebook's really good for organisations like ourselves, and I think for you as well, to have the kind of album of photos, the videos there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great place to access the great work that you're doing in displaying that.
Yeah. I'm playing with Instagram at the moment as well. I'm trying to get my head around it. So
playing with Instagram as well.
So I'm on Instagram now, trying to get some photos of voluntary sector stuff on there. So
brilliant!
We've
brilliant.
got plenty from this period. Happy to use for that.
Thank you so much to Mike and Adele for coming in. Thank you guys. And congratulations. It's been a fantastic year for you guys. The awards went brilliantly. The festival was great. And you've raised lots of money for groups that are really going to need that money as well.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Cheers.
You've been listening to Sarah chatting to Mike and Adele from MAC. Now, if you'd like more information, just get in touch with us. We're on Facebook. Just type in Awaz Community Radio. You can tweet us at awazradio122 or email us. It's awazcommunityradio@gmail.com. Thanks for listening and have a great day.